At 11:47 on a Tuesday night, a cattle transport truck leaves a feedlot yard in Garden City, Kansas. The load is 42 head. Each animal weighs between 1,280 and 1,360 pounds. The driver has a scheduled arrival window at the Tyson Foods Holcomb facility, 14 miles west. The window is not flexible. The plant's kill floor runs 2 shifts. The first shift begins at 6 a.m. The pens that receive overnight deliveries must be filled, the cattle rested, and the harvest sequence organized before that shift starts. A truck that arrives at 5:50 a.m. instead of 2 a.m. compresses the rest period and pushes the handling timeline into the morning rush. The plant cannot absorb that compression without consequence. The GPS tracker in the cab logs position every 2 minutes. The system at the Holcomb receiving department already knows this truck is 14 miles out. The Tyson Foods Holcomb, though Kansas beef processing facility, holds daily harvest capacity of over 6,000 head. To feed that capacity continuously across 2 operating shifts, the procurement and transportation system feeding the plant must move more than 100 loads of cattle daily, sourced from feedlots distributed across western Kansas, the Texas Panhandle, and adjacent feeding regions. The electronic procurement platform that buys those cattle, the GPS-coordinated transportation fleet that moves them, and the tightly sequenced plant receiving operation that converts live animal inventory into a processing schedule. All of it must synchronize within tolerances measured in hours, not days. The 48-hour window, the time frame from feedlot pen to boxed beef in refrigerated distribution, is the operational constraint that gives the entire system its shape. Every decision about procurement timing, transportation routing, plant scheduling, and cold chain distribution flows from that window. The electronic procurement platforms that Tyson's beef buying team uses to source cattle for Holcomb operate as a real-time market that has largely replaced the physical auction barn for large volume transactions between major feedlots and major packers. The traditional cattle auction, animals moving through a ring, buyers bidding by hand signal, prices set by the auctioneer's gavel, persists for smaller transactions and for feeder cattle moving from cow-calf operations to feedlots. Though for the high-volume transactions between large feedlots and large processing plants like Holcomb, the market has shifted toward electronic systems that allow feedlot operators to list pens of cattle with specifications: weight, estimated quality grade, days on feed, delivery date availability, and allow packer buyers to bid on those pens from terminals at the plant or from mobile devices in the field. The cash cattle market, the spot price for fed cattle in western Kansas, fluctuates daily based on the supply of market-ready cattle in the feeding region, the competing demand from multiple processing plants, and the broader beef market signals flowing back from retail and food service buyers, a week when 3 major plants need to buy above their normal procurement pace because one plant ran short pushes spot prices higher. A week when feedlots have excess market-ready cattle and plants are running at or near capacity gives buyers more negotiating leverage. Tyson's procurement team at Holcomb monitors this market continuously, balancing the plant's daily supply requirements against the cost implications of buying ahead versus buying on the spot market. The forward contracts, agreements to purchase specific cattle at a pre-negotiated price for delivery on a future date, provide price certainty for both the feedlot and the packer at the cost of flexibility. Spot market purchases capture price advantages when the market softens at the risk of supply gaps when the market tightens. The electronic procurement systems that facilitate these transactions log every bid, every acceptance, every cattle specification, and every scheduled delivery date. The resulting data, thousands of cattle committed to specific delivery windows across a rolling calendar, feeds into the transportation scheduling system that must move each committed pen from its feedlot to the plant within the delivery window the procurement transaction specified. The live haul fleet, serving Holcomb, moves more than 100 loads of cattle daily from feedlots spread across western Kansas and into the Texas Panhandle, a procurement geography that extends up to 250 miles from the plant. A standard cattle transport trailer carries between 38 and 48 head of market weight cattle, depending on the trailer configuration and the size of the animals, at 1,300 pounds average live weight. A full load weighs approximately 52,000 to 62,000 pounds of cattle on a truck-trailer combination with a gross vehicle weight approaching the federal 80,000-pound limit. Drivers who run cattle loads must hold a commercial driver's license with livestock endorsement, understand the behavioral management of stressed cattle in transit, and navigate the time pressure of plant delivery windows without the slack that general freight hauling allows. GPS tracking on every unit in the live haul fleet lets the plant's receiving coordinator see the entire inbound queue in real time. Which trucks are loading at which feedlots, which are en route, how far out each unit is, and whether any truck is running behind schedule in ways that will affect the pen-filling sequence the receiving team has planned. A truck running 90 minutes late from a feedlot, 180 miles out, shifts the receiving team's plan. If that truck's cattle were scheduled to fill a specific pen for first shift harvesting, the receiving coordinator must either hold space for the late arrival, leaving a pen temporarily understocked, or substitute another pen's allocation and adjust the morning harvest sequence accordingly. These adjustments happen in real time, communicated between the receiving coordinator and the live haul dispatcher, who can sometimes redirect a truck that is running ahead of schedule to compensate. The cattle themselves experience the transport physically in ways that affect the meat quality the plant produces. A 1,300-pound steer, loaded under rough handling, transported in a poorly ventilated trailer during summer heat, and unloaded with excessive noise and electric prod use, arrives at the plant with elevated cortisol and adrenaline levels. These stress hormones affect the post-harvest muscle chemistry in specific ways. The accelerated glycogen depletion they cause reduces the lactic acid that normal post-harvest muscle metabolism produces, which raises ultimate muscle pH above the normal range and produces dark-cutting beef, a condition visible as dark purple rather than bright red muscle tissue, with a dry, sticky texture that retail buyers reject, as the financial cost of dark-cutting beef is direct. Carcasses with this condition receive USDA discount grades and cannot be sold into the retail markets that pay full value. Tyson's live haul protocols include specific loading density standards, trailer ventilation requirements, electric prod restrictions, rest pen specifications at the plant, and maximum transport time guidelines, all designed to minimize the stress response that dark cutting produces. And the Holcomb facility's receiving operation begins processing inbound trucks before the kill floor's first shift starts. Arriving cattle move from the transport trailer through unloading chutes into holding pens organized by scheduled harvest time. Animals destined for the first shift harvest morning pen fill first, followed by later deliveries for the second shift. Each pen group receives access to water, replacing the fluid lost in transit, and sufficient time in the holding environment to allow the acute stress of transportation to subside. The rest period is not incidental to meat quality. Research across the beef processing industry has consistently documented that cattle held 2 to 4 hours with water access before harvest show better pH distribution in the resulting carcass, lower incidence of dark cutting, and reduced variability in the quality grade distribution than cattle harvested immediately after unloading. At 6,000 head per day, the percentage point difference in dark cutting incidence between a well-rested and a poorly rested population translates to dozens of carcasses per shift that move to or away from the premium value product stream. The USDA inspection presence at Holcomb begins before the harvest sequence starts. Federal inspectors assigned to the plant by the Food Safety and Inspection Service arrive before first shift and maintain continuous presence through both harvest shifts, covering ante-mortem inspection, the pre-harvest observation of live animals for signs of disease, injury, or conditions that would render the animal unfit for human food, through post-mortem inspection of carcasses and organs after harvest. The ante-mortem inspection of 6,000 head per day is not a casual process. Animals that inspectors flag as lame, showing neurological signs, visibly ill, or otherwise suspected of conditions that affect their eligibility, are moved to a suspect pen for additional evaluation. An animal that cannot be cleared for harvest after additional inspection is condemned, removed from the food supply at the feedlots or plant's expense. The percentage of incoming cattle that receive condemnation or suspect status is low, typically well under 1% at well-managed plants receiving cattle from established feedlots. But at 6,000 head per day, not even a fraction of a percent represents a meaningful number of animals. The harvest sequence at Holcomb runs from 6 a.m. through both shifts, with each station in the process contributing to a continuous flow that cannot pause without backing up every stage upstream of it. The harvest line moves carcasses from the initial stages through a sequence of operations: hide removal, evisceration, carcass splitting, inspection stations, wash, trim, and initial grading that converts a live animal into a hanging carcass in a defined number of minutes per animal at the line's design speed. A plant running 6,000 head across 2 shifts processes approximately 3,000 per shift, or roughly 375 per hour on an 8-hour shift. That pace, roughly 6 to 7 animals per minute, sets the tempo of every station on the line. Post-mortem inspection occurs at multiple stations along the harvest line. USDA inspectors examine the carcass, the organs, liver, lungs, heart, kidneys, and the head for evidence of disease, contamination, parasites, or conditions that would require trimming or condemnation of affected parts. The inspection system at this throughput speed requires both trained inspector judgment and automated systems that flag specific conditions for closer examination. After the initial harvest sequence, the carcasses move to the quality grading station where USDA graders evaluate each carcass for the marbling, intramuscular fat distribution, and maturity indicators that determine its USDA quality grade. At Holcomb's throughput, graders must make and record their assessment of each carcass in seconds. The economic importance of this assessment is significant. A prime carcass commands substantially higher value than a select carcass, and the difference in price between upper choice and lower choice at 6,000 carcasses per day affects the plant's daily revenue by an amount that makes grade distribution a primary management focus. Camera-based grading assistance systems that image the ribeye at the 12th to 13th ribe interface and use algorithmic analysis to assess marbling score have entered commercial use at several large plants and supplement the human grader's visual assessment, improving consistency across shifts and reducing the variability that comes from evaluating thousands of carcasses across a full day's work. After grading, carcasses enter the blast chill system, the temperature reduction infrastructure that takes a carcass from approximately 95 degrees Fahrenheit at the end of the harvest line to 34 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit within 18 to 24 hours. Rapid temperature reduction is a food safety imperative. Non-pathogen growth on beef surfaces follows temperature-dependent kinetics. Bacteria double in population at rates that vary exponentially with temperature. A carcass surface that stays above 50 degrees for extended periods allows pathogen populations, primarily E. coli, Salmonella, and Listeria, to grow at rates that increase the risk of finished product contamination. Blast chilling systems that move large volumes of cold air across carcass surfaces achieve temperature reduction rates that conventional coolers cannot match. The blast chill rooms at Holcomb force refrigerated air at high velocity across carcasses arranged in precise spacing on overhead rails. The spacing is engineered, too close together, and air circulation between carcasses slows, reducing chill rate. Too far apart and the room's capacity drops below the throughput the harvest line produces. The rail system that carries carcasses into and through the blast chill space is itself a logistics system, managing the flow of 6,000 carcasses per day through a facility where space is finite, and timing determines whether the downstream fabrication operation has the chilled carcasses it needs on schedule. By the time a carcass has completed the blast chill phase, it has moved from a live animal in a Holcomb pen to a fully chilled hanging carcass ready for fabrication. See the elapsed time from pen to chilled carcass, approximately 20 to 28 hours, depending on plant scheduling and carcass chilling rate. The 48-hour clock is running. Fabrication, packaging, and loading for distribution must complete within the remaining window. At our fabrication, converting chilled beef carcasses into the boxed cuts that move through Tyson's distribution network, runs in a facility cooled to 34 to 38 degrees Fahrenheit, where workers in protective clothing break carcasses down into primal cuts, subprimal cuts, and further processed portions following specifications that retail and food service buyers provide. The cuts that come off the fabrication floor at Holcomb reflect the demand signals from Tyson's national customer base. The specific weights, portion sizes, trim levels, and packaging specifications that a grocery chain's meat department or a food service distributor's product catalog requires. A large retail customer might specify boneless strip steaks at 12 to 14 ounces, trimmed to 1/4 inch of external fat, vacuum sealed in 2 packs. A food service customer might need tenderloin tails at a specific weight range for restaurant portion control purposes, automated portion control systems, weigh-belt conveyors with diverting gates that route individual pieces to their correct weight category, reduce the labor-intensive manual sorting that earlier fabrication systems required, and improve the accuracy of portion weight compliance. A retail customer whose packaging specification calls for a 12 to 14 ounce ribeye can only receive product that falls within that window. Anything below 12 ounces or above 14 ounces requires rework or diversion to a different product specification. The boxed beef product that emerges from fabrication. Vacuum-packed subprimals or retail-ready portioned cuts in labeled packaging moves into a cold storage area at temperatures that maintain the product below 34 degrees, while the outbound loading schedule fills refrigerated trailers for distribution. The cold chain distribution system that carries boxed beef from Holcomb to retail and food service destinations operates on the same time pressure that drove the live haul fleet to the plant 36 hours earlier, just applied at the product end of the chain rather than the animal end. Boxed beef is a perishable product with a shelf life measured in days to weeks, depending on the packaging method and the product's intended use. A vacuum-packed subprimal in a cryovac bag has a refrigerated shelf life of several weeks under ideal cold chain conditions. A retail-ready portioned product in modified atmosphere packaging has a shorter shelf life, calibrated to the time it will spend on a grocery store shelf. The distribution window, the time from plant loading dock to customer distribution center or direct delivery destination, must consume as little of that shelf life as possible. Tyson's national distribution network from Holcomb covers customers from the Pacific Coast to the eastern seaboard with temperature-controlled trucks, running routes that vary from overnight deliveries to regional distribution centers within 300 miles to multi-day transcontinental runs. The refrigerated trailer maintains product temperature below 34 degrees throughout transit. Drivers monitor temperature continuously, and electronic data loggers create a continuous record of product temperature that the customer can verify upon receipt. The 48-hour window from feedlot to distribution centers on this cold chain delivery as its endpoint. A steer that left a Garden City feedlot pen on Tuesday night arrives at Holcomb in the early Wednesday morning hours, moves through harvest Wednesday morning, completes the blast chill cycle by Thursday morning, moves through fabrication Thursday, then loads on a distribution truck. Thursday afternoon, by Friday, that beef reaches a regional distribution center. By Saturday, it appears in a retail display case, 6 days from feedlot pen to consumer purchase. The 48-hour window at the processing and distribution end is the precision mechanism that makes the 6-day consumer timeline possible. The scale of Holcomb's operation, over 6,000 head processed daily, 5 to 6 days per week, has made the facility one of the most significant single points in the American beef supply chain. That significance became visible in August 2019 when a fire damaged portions of the Holcomb facility and forced an extended shutdown. The plant's daily harvest capacity represented approximately 5% of the nation's total fed cattle slaughter capacity. Some of its sudden absence from the market created a supply imbalance that drove fed cattle prices down. Feedlots had cattle at market weight, but fewer buyers, and drove boxed beef prices up simultaneously as the reduced supply of fabricated beef pushed wholesale prices higher. The spread between live cattle and boxed beef prices widened to levels that the market had not seen in years. The event demonstrated, in quantifiable terms, what the concentration of processing capacity at large facilities means for the supply chain's resilience, the efficiency gains of consolidation, the cost advantages per unit of processing capacity that large plants achieve versus smaller ones, create concentration risk that no individual plant manager, feedlot operator, or retail buyer controls. Tyson and the other major beef processors have managed this risk through geographic distribution of their processing capacity. Multiple plants in different regions, sourcing from different feedlot populations, serving overlapping customer bases, so that a disruption at any single facility can be partially compensated by redirecting supply to other plants. At Holcomb's scale, that compensation is partial. No other single facility can absorb 6,000 head per day of additional throughput without its own supply and scheduling disruptions. The steer that left Garden City at 11:47 on Tuesday night reaches Holcomb's receiving pens before 1 a.m. Wednesday. It rests until the first shift begins at 6 a.m. By 7:30 a.m., it is moved through the harvest sequence. The carcass hangs in the blast chill room by 8 a.m. Wednesday morning. By Thursday morning, the chill cycle is complete. By Thursday afternoon, the carcass is moving through fabrication. By Thursday evening, the resulting cuts are in a box on a refrigerated trailer heading east toward a distribution center. 48 hours from feedlot pen to distribution loading dock. The GPS tracker in the Tuesday night truck's cab logged that it arrived at the Holcomb gate at 12:58 a.m. 14 minutes inside the receiving window the scheduling system specified. The plant's coordinator logged the arrival, adjusted the pen fill sequence by 2 positions, moved on to the next truck, already 8 miles out on the dark Kansas highway, headlights pointing toward the same gate. The system does not pause for the precision it achieves. It runs because the precision is the system. If this look at the 48-hour supply chain connecting western Kansas feedlots to the national beef distribution network gave you a clearer picture of how industrial-scale beef processing actually operates, the procurement, the logistics, the timed sequences, hit the like button and help more people find this kind of detailed content. Subscribe for more deep dives into the supply chains and systems behind everyday food and commerce. Drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. These stories travel further than we expect, and hearing where is always worthwhile.